Whenever I stand at this service, I always get blown away by how many people are here. I know there was rain forecast, and I shouldn't have said that. But you're here, and I just want to say thank you for this community for turning out to acknowledge this day. I remember when I was in high school, I walked past the teacher's staff room, and one of the teachers grabbed my arm, and she whispered, "Come in here. I want you to meet someone you will tell your grandchildren about." In that room wasn't just one person, it was many. They were World War I veterans. One of them had served in Gallipoli. And she said, sit down with them, listen, truly listen, and you will cherish that for the rest of your life. They were frail, their hands were shaking, not from fear, but from age. But they answered our questions, and more than that, they asked us questions. They wanted to know what our hopes and dreams were. Today in 2025, we live in the last era of World War II veterans being amongst us. Very few can walk because most are 100 or over. There is one member of this RSL, David Westwood, who served in World War II. There is one in Batcare who's 103. So to the students and all of you here today, if there is any way that you can meet and speak to and listen to a World War II veteran, please do, because one day you too will tell your grandchildren that you met some of the greatest Australians. Last year I took you to the MCG and asked you to use that as some way to understand the scale of the loss of all Australians who have died in war, 103,000. 60,000 from World War I and almost 40,000 from World War II. Of the 40,000 that died in World War II, 1 million served. Less than 2,000 are still alive today. I want to briefly tell you about one. This federal seat now includes Box Hill. And last year, 2 days before Anzac Day, I met a man called Jim Burrows. He was 101 and he was a coast watcher. Of the 1 million Australians who served in World War II, just over 500 were coast watchers. Their job was to operate in very small teams behind enemy lines and to pass intelligence back about the movements of enemy ships, army personnel and aircraft. In doing so, they shaped the course of battles and saved many lives. When I spoke to Jim Burrows 2 days before Anzac Day last year, he spoke about how he spent 10 months in Japanese-occupied Rabaul. He was overlooking the airfield and passing intelligence back. When I asked him questions about that, he spoke of his brothers. His twin brother Tom served in the RAAF as a gunner. His older brother Robert served in another unit that was involved in Rabaul, but he was taken prisoner. Somehow, Jim survived the war, when many other coast watchers didn't. And all he wanted to do was to go down to Rabaul and see if his two brothers were maybe there and maybe taken prisoner. What he didn't know then, but he found out later, was that his twin brother Tom was shot down over Rabaul in his first mission, and he was killed. What he didn't know then, but he found out later, was that his older brother Robert was taken prisoner, but put on the Montevideo Maru, and with 1,000 other Australians sank to the bottom of the ocean in 11 minutes. 1,000 Australians is 1% of the War Memorial. And then when I asked Jim what he did after the war and how his family dealt with that grief, where 3 boys who served and only 1 came home, he spoke of his mum. And he spoke about how she was the glue that held the remaining family together. And he spoke of Anzac Day Anzac Day was a day that gave her comfort. Comfort that their family wasn't alone, that their sacrifice wasn't forgotten, and this country is grateful for what they gave. He also spoke about his hope for Australia, because a few weeks after I spoke to him, he died. And a few days after he died, his wife died. So if you can, find a World War II veteran. You probably have to go to them. They can't come here. And if you can, ask them those questions. But there's something more that you can do. Honour their sacrifice in how we live our lives. Live a life of purpose, of generosity, and of gratitude. Give more than we take. Be kind where we can. Be a good parent, a good brother, a good sister. And remember that this is a unique place on earth. Australia isn't just defined by this beautiful land that we call home, and it is beautiful. It's not just defined by the freedoms that we cherish. We are open and free. That's still rare on earth. It's not just defined by the fact that we are one of the oldest continuous democracies on earth. It's because this is a place worth caring about. And if required, it's worth fighting for. And if we remember that, we honour their sacrifice in a way that means the most, lest we forget.